Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Gen V Season 1, Episode 6. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's focus on all the stuff with Kate. So, obviously, the group is feeling very conflicted. I do like that Maria's the only one who's a lot more willing to be at least more forgiving and understanding towards Kate, because she looks at it more as like, yeah, Kate messed up, but it's not just her. She's just like all of us, manipulated by this school. Like, Shetty's the one behind all of this. It's like we got to understand, like, be a lot more forgiving. Andre, it's a lot harder because for him, it's like, how do I know everything that happened between us is real and isn't just, I mean, she pushed Luke to make him forget his own brother over and over again. And it's like, how do I know, like, if anything we had was real? That's that complicated rub of someone who pushes. I mean, and you know, she's kind of also had to live her entire life like that. Always be careful about what she touches when she touches someone. But it also seems like, once again, we are exploring the expansion of other people's powers and how they manifest and what they are. I mean, once again, you take Jordan's power. It isn't just like, oh, I can change my gender. Each gender has its own power. And obviously you look at Maria and the application of her blood bending and what it's capable and what she's able to do. But then you take Kate. It feels like Kate's on her, like, Professor X status. Maybe pushing Jean Grey, probably not that far. Probably, because, like, I think it's probably going to be more, probably more Professor X, because it seems like her ability is to push people, but it also seems like she also has some form of telekinetic. Like, it seems like it's all connected to some, like, it all stems from the, like, branches of telekinesis. Not telekinesis, telepathy is the word I'm looking for. Because she had talked about it later on, like, she can't keep the voices out. I think either that's just her own guilt, but it sounded like she was making it seem like when she touches people, it isn't like, it's not a one-way street. It's actually a two-way street, so that when she touches and pushes someone, some of that reverbs and hits her, so she hears their thoughts. And, like, I guess, like, maybe it's even indicative that what she takes from you, what she steals away from you memory-wise, so, like, it all stays with her. Like, maybe that's what it is. Like, that's also why it has such an effect on her when she pushes people. It's because, like, obviously, like, it has it has a backlash to it, but maybe the backlash manifests itself in whatever she takes from you, she carries with her. So that's why it takes such a toll on her, because maybe the human mind is only meant to be able to, like, house so much information. So maybe that's why her body like breaks down the way it does, is because she's, like, holding in everything she's ever taken from someone over and over again. It stays with her. That, like I said, that's just me guessing. Maybe that's not even how it really works, but I think that'd be interesting if that was the case. So, but they want answers from Kate, but the problem is she's been pushing herself too much. She gave Andre all his memories back, Marie, Jordan, and Emma, and that was, you know, and obviously she's blaming herself. You know, she realizes, like, right, like, I thought I was doing right, I thought I was doing good, but I'm also realizing, like, it doesn't change the fact is I recognize all the people I've hurt and manipulated, and she's having what seems like a seizure again, and there's such drastic effects this time that her mental state is just unstable, and she ends up dragging everyone into her mind, including Dusty, who was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. You poor bastard. But we got that. This episode reminded me so much of, obviously, episode 7 of season 3, the Noir episode, because also Mindstorm put Billy Butcher in a trauma coma, but, like, that was something only Butcher experienced. Now it's like not only Kate having to confront her trauma, everyone else getting to witness that trauma, but everyone else's trauma starts coming up too. So it is like an amalgamation of that episode, because we delved into Butcher's trauma, but also Noir's. Now, what I think is such interesting that I already kind of got spoiled that Soldier Boy was going to be in this episode, just because I saw a thumbnail when I was, like, flipping through YouTube, and I saw a thumbnail. I was like, ah, damn. But it's like, I already knew he's going to be in this show. I didn't know what the context was. Like I said, it was just a thumbnail. But now I'm like, oh, this is what, it's not even really Soldier Boy. It's actually a figment of Kate's imagination. But that's where I go, like, oh, this is super meta, because, once again, it's this interesting thing that for Kate, it's like, oh, Soldier Boy was like, because he's like the gold standard of superheroes. She's, like, always had a crush on him, and he was her love. And he's like, yeah, I'm the one that taught her how to flick the bean, and all the metaphors for young lady jerking off and talking about like, oh yeah, like the pillow talk and everything. It's really gross. I mean, we also know like there was that line from The Legend where he was like, yeah, we kind of had to hide the fact is he was 63 and the person he was with was 19. Like it, so we already know Soulja Boy's a nasty, nasty dude in that regard. But because obviously he doesn't age, so I mean, it gets in that weird territory. I mean, it's kind of, it's literally in the same vein as like, well, Stormfront and Homelander getting together. It's like, yeah, she's got like 60 plus years on him. Well, because like you also had to add in the fact that she's not only 100 years old, like she was like maybe 30 in her 20s or 30s when she got the Compound V, so she's actually like 130. Tensions and all that aside, but it's like, yes, it's in that gross territory. Even in that case, but at least Homelander's a full-grown adult in his 40s compared to like that Soulja Boy situation. It was like 19. Whatever. The point I made before I went on that diatribe was like the parallel of like, right, Soulja Boy mentally was kind of her safety net. Like he comforted her from her trauma, which is so ironic considering Soulja Boy is the reason why Noir had those cartoon like characters. Why they were his protection, they were his manifestation of his trauma caused by Soulja Boy. So for Soulja Boy to be someone else's means of protecting themselves from their trauma, and for him to be the one that induced heavy trauma on someone else, it's the irony is not there. I mean, and the parallels and irony is there. I thought that was so interesting. But I love that he's like, oh, Andre, you're that guy. You're the latest fuckboy. It's like, whatever, boys come and go, she'll always come back to me. And it's like, yeah, but you're a Russian spy. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, I bleed red. I mean, I'm not red as in commie, but red as in red, white, and blue. I fart the Star Spangled Banner. It's like, dude, you're weird. And just like, fuck you. Because he had made some point about Kate or whatever. And Dusty like, yeah, go on. He's like, hell yeah, brother. And then Soulja Boy looks at him and is like, shut the fuck up. It's like, dude, I love it. I'm so bummed we didn't get more of him in the episode. Because I love that he's like the one explaining everything. It's like, right, if she ends up in a coma, all of you end up in a coma. It's kind of a Nightmare on Elm Street. You die in a dream, you die in real life type of thing. But before he could really finish his explanation, he gets struck by, it's not real lightning, but it's metaphorical lightning, representing the fact is that, like her body shutting down and her mind shutting down because of all this. And he got electrocuted and died. It's like, oh, well, we got to get out of here. I also love as they're walking around, Andre's like, yeah, that guy was a dick. It's like, you have no idea. But I also love that it's showing you like what the general reception is, how Vought was able to spin it, instead of it being like, oh yeah, like Soulja Boy got turned by Russian spies. It's like, yeah, let's not, you don't want to acknowledge what really happened, that his team turned on him. He was captured by Russia and he came here on a killing spree out of revenge, that it wasn't even him doing it. Once again, Vaught's covering all his bases. I mean, they had to admit the Soulja Boy of it all eventually because they couldn't really hide behind that anymore, as Vicky said. But once again, it's just a kind of that nice reminder of like, yeah, that's how Vought spun that, because you didn't really get full clarity of that in season 3, in the aftermath in the season 3 finale. Maybe there were bits and pieces, but I feel like you never got full clarity. It's interesting to kind of have that clarity now, and I'm sure maybe they'll kind of dive into that maybe more, or maybe it'll just at least be slightly acknowledged like it is in season 4 of The Boys. But I'm curious to see how they go about that. But either way, but yeah, like I said, like everyone like starts going through their trauma. We find out about Andre. And I was like, oh, interesting. Because we thought like, oh, him and Kate hooking up in episode 3 was the first time. It's like, maybe that was the first time in a while, but it was pretty frequent. They were doing it behind Luke's back. It's hard to say whether or not Luke actually knew or not. Because, I mean, we also don't know. Kate could have also been wiping that from his mind. Like, who knows what else she was like, oh, all the stuff about Sam in the woods, sure. But you also don't know, maybe she wiped his mind anytime he ever found out about her and Andre. So maybe on some level he did know. I mean, he still said like, yo, I love you, hugged him and everything. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything, because that could have been a time where he just didn't remember that he knew about that. So maybe he would have felt a little differently. I don't know. And to them, it makes Andre like, yes, it's a scummy thing to do. This is your best friend. But also for him, it wasn't just like a random hookup. He's in love with Kay. It's like, I loved her. And that's why that's why it cuts so deep, her manipulation. Because once again, like, was anything we had was real? Was it real? Because if it wasn't, then that means I went behind my best friend's back. I hurt him, was screwing him over. And for what? For something that might not have even been real. So that's why like Andre has even more guilt and anger about the situation because he loves her. He's like, I don't want to talk to Kate because I don't want to forgive her. Poor Dusty. Like, I love how also when they came back to reality, no one bothered to be like, oh, we're all back, we're safe. Not a mention of Dusty. That's sad. I mean, they already knew going in that, but it's like, poor Dusty. Like, once again, he just happened to be in the wrong place. He just happened to be there when they brought Kate in, and he just got dragged into this psychic brain stuff. It's like, oh, that sucks. But next up, we had Jordan's situation. And I love how they decided to shoot that because they're in her mind, none of their powers are working. So for Jordan, they're stuck as a boy and can't switch over or use their powers, which I think is also kind of this interesting thing where you feel that, I mean, each one of them has powers. Sure, each side of Jordan has powers, but I think it's also like, there's also trauma associated with that, with being like, hey, Jordan, if you want to, you could be a boy that you're like, that's trauma that Jordan has to deal with too, of like other people, their dad, as well as like a girlfriend they had in the past being like, if you wanted to, you could stay a boy forever. So being stuck in this situation, being trapped as a boy, that's really, I think that's really good writing of kind of making that a thing of like Jordan, who like can ever like easily switch back and forth, you know? Especially because Jordan, like I said, has that trauma of like, oh, I should be a boy. That once again, when they were with Marie, what was the thing that they did? They immediately switched to being a boy. But obviously, like in a state of everything, ended up switching back to being a girl. But once again, that was kind of like a subconscious thing because like Kate was messing with everyone's memories, kind of letting them kind of fly free and stuff like that. But I think that's just kind of this interesting thing. But also like how they filmed it, where in that memory, Jordan is staring at their female like version, and it's a memory where Jordan walked in on Brink and Soldier Boy, not Soldier Boy, Golden Boy, where Luke was going at him about something. And what did Jordan do? Jordan chose Brink's side, and it's like, oh, he's like that because there's some experiments kind of, basically he's on roids right now, and we're making him stronger, going to make him even stronger than Homelander, but sometimes he has a bad reaction, which even Jordan's like, well, whatever it is, I want to be a part of it as well. It's like, because I guess the less people involved, they need one person, they needed it to be Golden Boy, which we'll get to in a second, but I guess it's like Brink didn't want to bring more people into it. The more people you bring into it, the more likely you'd have to like kill Jordan if Jordan found out too much, because you don't know how Jordan would react to all of this. It's like Jordan wouldn't be completely sucked in by the cell. So it's like in the cell pitch of like, oh, you could be a part of this, but it's also like they only need one person to kind of reign supreme. But this is my thought process. Time and time again, what has Vought been looking for? What's Edgar been having like in his back pocket? It's always been contingencies for Homelander. Homelander's the hero you always have to be concerned about, worried about the most. So in the case of, at the time, he had Vicky kind of potentially in his back pocket. Who knows if like Golden Boy was supposed to be that golden parachute of like, well, what did they do? To get rid of Soldier Boy, they brought in Homelander. And, Payback got the green light to remove Soldier Boy from the equation. So they need someone to step in to fill that void. So history was going to repeat itself where Golden Boy was going to go after Homelander, I think. They needed to pump him up. They needed him to be strong. That's why they keep making that point. Second time they made the point of, Luke, you're stronger than, you will be bigger than Homelander. So it is that thing of they need him to be strong. He's meant to not only just be a contingency, but the means to knock Homelander off his pedestal, and if not, kill him. Because also, obviously this is beforehand, but I'm sure after the events of the season 3 finale, it's like, well, Ryan, for one, it would take a couple years before Ryan is old enough and strong enough, but if you're able to expedite that with Golden Boy, because Sam is uncontrollable because of, I don't know if he's just naturally born with schizophrenia or that's some byproduct of their experiments, but they were taking blood, I guess, taking blood from Sam and injecting it into Luke. I think they were trying to take some of Sam's strength and add it to Luke and make him stronger and stronger. Once again, just so he could, since we can't wait around forever for Ryan to grow up to potentially take on his dad, which is not going to happen now because he's siding with his dad, a la the, i.e. the season 3 finale. So that seems like what they're going for. So that's really interesting. And obviously there's that back and forth of Andre Marie towards Jordan. It's like, are you really like, you knew something was up with Brink, but it's like, for Jordan, it's like, Brink was good to me. And I love that the other Jordan was like, yeah, but you know, we promised to be a hero to help people, and what we were a coward. We knew something was up. Yes, Brink was nice to us. Like, I think that's a very big distinction of, he wasn't good to us, he was nice to us, but we placate and bend over backwards so much for anyone that's nice to us just because of what we've had to deal with. And it is that thing of when you feel so isolated and alone, the first person that's nice to you, which parallels, I mean, everyone's circumstances, Andre, Marie, and Jordan's all parallel and can coincide with Kate's trauma, because there's a lot of overlap in what their self-hatred and just kind of what the aftermath of their lives became, the trauma and pain that they carry. But yeah, like Jordan hearing from their other self being like, you're a coward. It's like, that's why I think Jordan also feels the need to try to be the best, to kind of, once again, it's like an overcompensation thing. I think you can make the argument maybe Andre wants to help out Luke to overcompensate for the guilt he feels about the whole him and Kate situation. We also got Marie and her circumstances, obviously, and she sees her sister, and her sister's like, right, you're a murderer. Like, you did this because they barged in on you, which is like, no, first and foremost, like, it really kind of clicks for Maria's like, I get this is my trauma and this is what Kate's power is doing, but it is also the thing of like, it's her own projections of her sister, because we don't really know. Like, her sister was young and looked at her as like a monster. We don't know if she fully feels that way anymore or not, but we'll have to wait and see. But it was just her own insecurities being basically mirrored back at her. I mean, that's what everyone's situation was. And she ended up talking to Kate, because it's like, right, my pain, this wasn't my fault. You told me it wasn't my fault, Kate. What happened to you wasn't your fault either. This was on your parents, because it is that thing again of, the reason why you're in this situation in the first place, Marie, you wouldn't have even had powers to kill your parents if it wasn't for them giving you wanting you to be this superhero, whatever their reasons were, whether it was the glory or fame that would come about you becoming a superhero, you know, whatever the case may be, it is on them. And the same thing with Kate. We saw that moment, her mom being so scared of her. I'm assuming it's not their house. I guess it's a facility they locked her away in because of like the way that door was designed. It looked like it was meant to be some form of a room just to kind of give her some form of normalcy. But she had talked about it like, my mom and my dad never touched me again. Now, someone had pointed that out, and that is kind of an interesting line to go back to in episode 3. We don't know what that means. One, we might find out like Kate's family situation might be even more fucked up than we think, because her mom never wanted to touch her again. Sure, because if you notice, you never see the dad in any of those flashbacks. It's only the mom. So now with that thought, with that thing of like, because I remember hearing other people be like, yeah, that's interesting that she said that line. That's something to keep in mind. And the fact is we didn't see the dad in any of those flashback memories makes me think her dad touched her in the, you know, he was abusing her. And so, because that's like, I think that's the double side of her power. It's like, right, it scared away. I basically lost my brother. We never found out whatever happened to him. My mom like resented me and was scared of me. But then also the benefit is my dad never touched me again. It feels like that's kind of where they were kind of going with that. And maybe on some level her mom kind of resents her for that too, sadly. So. And but also why, you know, much like Marie felt like, oh, I'm so happy with Shetty. Like Shetty was kind of that mother figure who was so understanding and so caring. You know, it happened to Kate first, and who knows how many other people. Because someone else had pointed out, like, oh yeah, like Kate. That, you know, Shetty has done this to 2 specific girls. Shetty latched on to Marie and Kate. So it's like, right, you pick some very unique, powerful people. Kate's got a very unique ability in the way that because she's like Mindstorm, but even bigger. Which let's also not forget, Mindstorm had it like once again, is it the ability or is the symptoms the illnesses, are they symptoms of the abilities, or the abilities kind of a symptom of like the powers? Because Mindstorm was bipolar, but was he already bipolar before his powers, or did his powers aggravate? Like maybe that's something that was already in his genetic code, and maybe his powers just kind of like kicked that in overdrive and made it worse. Maybe it's like he like genetically was predisposed to be bipolar, but maybe being like having mind telekinetic abilities. Not telekinetic, I keep saying that, telepathic abilities ended up, like I say, because there's so many characters, like I said, you could make a direct parallel to that episode with Mindstorm, with Kate, who has similar abilities, who her powers can go even further, because Mindstorm heard voices too, but it seemed like that might have just been a byproduct of his bipolar, and maybe that's the same thing for Kate. Maybe she has a form of bipolar situation, or maybe it's like Mindstorm's voices were a byproduct of him just being able to hear people's thoughts and stuff because of telepathy. So there's just a lot of there that we don't have a definitive answer on, but you can infer a lot, and it's a lot of interesting stuff to kind of think about. But Kate wanted to basically let herself die because she wanted to punish herself. But Andre's like, no. Basically, you don't get to take the easy way out. You manipulated me. You were someone I loved, and I can never forgive you. But the fact of the matter is, you've never had the choice. Your mom took the choice away from you. Shetty took the choice away from you. At the end of the day, this, for the first time in your life, is your opportunity to have a choice of your own. So wake up. Because it's easy just to run away. You're going to take the easy way out and die. It's like, no, you want to make things right. Even Jordan wants to make things right. It's like, I failed before. I want to make things right this time. I mean, like, Jordan didn't act when they had the opportunity, and they benefited from it. Which also, it's like, yeah, Marie kind of doesn't have a leg to stand on, considering like you were going to lie about everything. But also, Jordan's guilt is like, if I'd done something back then, maybe we could have stopped this whole tragedy from happening. So luckily, everyone ended up waking up, and I love that all the while that was happening, we had the whole Sam and Emma situation, which they went and did the thing, which immediately I was like, man, this show has a lot of sex. But then I had to think back in retrospect, it's like, well, The Boys has a lot of sex too, but I think it's just like, it kind of goes even harder in the sex angle. But it also, it's like, I mean, I guess it's almost supposed to be like that, not satire of, but almost that parallel of like, well, you have something like Euphoria, but I think it's a little easier to process in your head. Having not seen Euphoria, but knowing what Euphoria is about, it's like in Euphoria, it's like, well, they're all, yes, like all the actors are like adults, but they're playing high schoolers. At least in this case, it's like everyone's like adults playing college students, so it's a little better. But yeah, a lot of sex in this, but it's also like, yeah, I mean, that's the college life. I mean, I never went to college, so I never had the college experience, but it's like, right, parties, drinking, drugs, and sex, lots and lots of sex, it's kind of like the stereotype about, I'm sure there's some validity to like that being kind of like the college life and experience. So, but obviously it's like in this world, it's more on steroids because it's for entertainment purpose, so everything's even more exaggerated and heightened, but you're also living in a world that's heightened because of superheroes being a thing, and they're worshipped and like they're treated as gods, as celebrities. So but they do their thing, and I was like, hey yo. And then also partway through the whole situation, he sees her as a puppet, and I was like, oh, this is weird. But then she turns back. I was like, oh, maybe he's so wrapped up in the moment for him. It's like, oh, my mind's a little scattered, but like being with Emma like solidifies my mind. But then we see like when she kind of has a big O, her hand touches like the arcade or the machine behind them, and it might have been an arcade machine. I think it might have been actually a claw machine. But like her hand was that of a puppet. So it's like probably happened a little bit more times throughout that whole situation. And obviously he's too scared to actually tell her like that was what was going on. But he, it's this really sad thing of like, I mean, everyone in this group, this is the universe in general of The Boys. Everyone is so broken in this universe in some shape or form. Everyone's got trauma. And, Sam is like, I'm so broken, Emma, that you're amazing. You should be with someone that's not broken like me. But for her, it's like she's found someone who sees her and accepts her. That it's like it's nice to once again, everyone in life just wants to be seen and accepted. And for her, she found someone who does, that she likes, who likes her too, who doesn't just fetishize her in the way because of her powers like Home Dude did in episode 1. I think it's just they're almost they're this perfect equilibrium for each other's trauma. Like, I think they help make each other better. But like, she's able to calm Sam down in a way like only Luke really could, and I think that speaks volumes about their connection. But I think he also makes her feel better about herself and all the BS that she has associated with her mom, and the bullshit her mom kind of pushed onto her growing up. But even later on, she's the one that stopped Sam from killing Kate. It's like, oh, she hurt you, and she hurt Luke. But it's like, yeah, but doesn't mean you have to hurt her either. And ultimately, he lets her go. And she's, for Kate, it's like, I know you can't trust me, but I am going to make this up to you guys. I'm going to try and do right. So the plan now is to go after Shetty, but it's like, if we do this, there is no going back. You're going after the dean, and there's no like, hiding like, and you know everything, and that's going to come back to bite you. So we have that. Then on the flip side of the episode, we have the whole situation with Indira, her and Dr. Cardosa. We find out about the virus that they were making. Interestingly enough, there was a suggestion. I was watching the break room last week. Their thought was that basically this virus, they're wondering it's about controlling soups and be able to potentially take their powers. It seems like that is kind of the case. It's about controlling soups. But they had thought like, right, maybe that's where Soldier Boy comes into this place, because what was Soldier Boy's new ability because of the Russians? He was able to take powers away. And we know that the V is in the blood. He literally burns the V out of any soup's body. And so they're kind of doing a similar thing. Like maybe studying Soldier Boy gave them the means they needed to kind of start. I mean, who knows how long. Well, the Woods have been active for a while, but we don't know how long it's been active. Because obviously, like, the Soldier Boy, like, it's something they were already working on, but probably the Soldier Boy of it all. I mean, who knows if they've been able to benefit at all. Because we know the CIA, at least Mallory was there when he was put back in a box, but we don't know if that was a Vought thing, or whether that was, like, CIA, like, people locking him up. So maybe, like, the Woods and Vought have not been able to kind of experiment on Soldier Boy like they would want to. So maybe they haven't reaped the benefits of like, okay, maybe they're not fully even aware of like, okay, we'd be able to take from Soldier Boy to do what we need to do with this virus. Or maybe maybe they were able to get a sample, who knows? Maybe that in it, because it seemed like, because they definitely wanted Marie, because she's obviously got, like, her, especially with this all being about blood and stuff, her ability would come in handy. I mean, once again, we're seeing her powers expand more and more. Like, Kate's heart was kind of, like, slowing down, and Marie was able to kind of get it beating again. Like, more and more about her powers are starting to expand beyond what, none of them know what they're fully capable of. But Marie's starting to grow in quickly and in such fast magnitudes, But either way, it is seeming like this is about being able to take people's powers away, being able to kind of do that. I think it's going to be the situation of, hey, we'll be able to decide, once again, that conversation of controlling who gets abilities and who don't. I mean, that's been a big part of Vought from the beginning. Obviously, you have the Stormfront side of things of kind of, wanting it to be one master race type of thing, but also the V24 element of it all. That obviously kind of went down the drain, but it is about deciding who gets the powers and who don't and for how long. And, so once again, Vought, pharmaceutical company and all that. But the plan is to be able to kind of take people's powers. And we saw Betsy, which isn't she the one that was breathing fire, but maybe because like her hands were kind of electrified. So I was like, oh, does a fire come from her hands? But the way she was coughing, I'm like, not less doubt those were the early effects of the virus affecting her. I thought like, oh, maybe it's because she was burning her own throat with the fire. It's what I thought previously. Maybe that they had already given her some form of the virus and it just expedited in this episode. But yeah, it stripped her of her powers, and then Shetty was like, no, push her a little further. Let's see how sick she gets, which even Cardoso was like, I wasn't expecting her to get so, I thought maybe diarrhea and more vomit, but she dropped dead, and then Shetty was all about it. It's like, oh, can we make this more contagious? So, there's a lot to unpack there. So, Shetty's plan is she wants to wipe out. She's probably promising Vought, like, hey, we'll be able to use this to control soups, like any soup that's an issue, like a Homelander who's too powerful to really kind of, I mean, who knows how much of the virus you would need to like stab him, because once again, he's top tier, tippity top boy when it comes to powers, that maybe this virus might not be enough. Like you'd probably get one shot at it, so you better make sure it counts type of situation. So that's probably what Vought's planning on. Like, well, we'll make heroes a lot more rare by getting rid of like any that seem too much of an issue. Like, we need to rein this superhero thing back in, because I thought this virus was about controlling it, which it's still in the same vein, but I thought it was purely about more control and reining heroes back in. That's kind of been what Edgar wanted. Once again, he wanted to go back to Vought being a pharmaceutical company and everything like it always was. But either way. But the other side of it about Shetty, about Indira being like, oh, we need to make this contagious. I was like, you are like, this entire time, me and so many other people, we've made the mistake of thinking, oh, you're Stillwell, you're Edgar. What do you mean? It's still a little bit of that. But what we didn't expect is you're the butcher of this series. You're like so fueled with hatred towards soups. I mean, has his issues with soups. I mean, Frenchie doesn't like, I mean, yeah, he's taken down soups, but he's never like been so like, I mean, with Frenchie's like hitman past that, he kind of goes for everyone, but like, obviously his connection with Kimiko, like he Butcher's the one in the group who has the most anti-hate. Like, his stems from Homelander, but that hate was personified. Like, he was already filled with so much hatred because of his upbringing, and Homelander was the pillar of his hatred. But that kind of spread to all soups. He hates all soups. He thinks they all need to be wiped out. And I think Indira's the same way. She hates soups. Because, once again, we heard it in episode 3. She had a daughter. So, now you're going like, and you lost a child to a soup. And now your daughter was collateral damage. I mean, you're basically like the boys. Like, you're like a butcher, but you're also like each one of them is tied to the like heroes in that way. Frenchie not as much, but Mother's Milk, Butcher, and Huey all had someone they loved taken by a soup, and they all went out for revenge. And she's going full Butcher with it, because she's going full scorched earth. She wants all soup is dead, So, because that's why I was wondering, I was like, are we going to find out she's actually a soup? It's like, no, but we find out she's a human, but she's very much like I said, I think she's going to be this series version of Butcher, but she's just on the more, whereas Butcher, once again, that's the thing about the boys. Are there really any heroes? There are characters that are on the right side of things. They're just genuinely, like, obviously, like, you'd probably say, like, out of any of the characters, I'd say Annie's like the most pillar of goodness, but even she's kind of faltered over the course of the show, where she's done, let's not forget she murdered a dude in season 2. Can't forget that. So, but I mean, overall, like, it's weird to say, but like, that's a blemish in comparison to all the terrible things a lot of other soups have done. So, it's like, you're still a saint compared to like a lot of other people. You're a saint in comparison to the boys in a ways, especially like Butcher, like all the people he's killed and put down. So it is that thing of, the boys you kind of can view them as heroes in this world where heroes are villains, but at the same time, they're not heroes. They're anti-heroes, but like, it's kind of that nihilistic approach of like, there are no heroes in this world. Everyone's just doing their best to smack down the other person for doing more wrong. It's like the lesser of two evils is kind of what you could say, that the boys are heroes in some regards, but you could also be like, no, they're just the lesser of two evils. So it feels like Shetty's, like I said, but she fits in just kind of with the boys in that regard of like, she's set up as the antagonist of the show, but if you put her with the boys, she's more protagonist, funny enough. Because I'm sure Butcher would be able to easily sign off on like the whole like, oh, like let's wipe them all off the map. I mean, he literally said that. So feels like that's what we're getting with Indira. So it's definitely going to be interesting to ultimately see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. I mean, we got 2 episodes left. The next episode's only episode 7, so obviously everything ain't going to go according to plan, but what's going to happen on that front, because like all our main characters are together, we're all on the same side trying to make this right. Now the question then becomes, what's the aftermath of this episode going to be like after all that trauma everyone went through? Like obviously Kate and Andre's situation is fucked. Jordan Marie is going to be interesting to see, and just they all witness each other's trauma. So, I mean, trauma bonding is a thing, so it could bring them together, but it could also pull them apart in a lot of ways. So, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. But, I mean, truth be told, is like that's kind of what Emma and Sam kind of have going on. I mean, there's a lot of trauma bonding going on, but yeah, we'll ultimately have to wait to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.